guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I was in the mood to talk about something a little bit more fun, something we could possibly have a chuckle at. So I came up with my list of my top horological flops. These are what I think are some of the biggest flops in the horological industry. Now, they might not all be watches, but they're made by watchmaking brands. And of course, this is only my opinion, so feel free to disagree and let me know if you actually like some of these things. Actually, I rather like a lot of the things on this list. However, they didn't particularly sell well or were quickly discontinued. Now, before we get started, customary wristwatch check. Today I'm wearing the Rolex 16610 Pre-Ceramic Submariner on a NATO strap. Now, just because you're a great brand doesn't mean you don't have a few skeletons in your past. And you guys might be surprised to see some of the things on this list. Some of these watches were discontinued so quickly that you may not even have heard of them. Or they're just so unpopular that you may never have even seen one in the flesh. However, no matter how good of a brand you are, everybody makes a flop once in a while. So let's start with number one. These are in no particular order. Now, the first one on my list is a watch I actually quite like, and I would like to own because it's such a weird piece. And that is the Rolex Prince. Yes, guys, you heard that right. Rolex. Now, the Prince is a rectangular shaped watch, part of the Cellini line, so it only comes in precious metals, and it's a manual wind movement. And it's a pretty gorgeous one too. The movement is actually rectangular to fit the case. That's not something very common. It usually takes a lot of care to have a movement in the same shape as the case, especially when it's not a round watch. The Rolex Oyster Prince never sold. I mean, I've seen them a few times in dealers, only the biggest dealers carry them, but I've never seen one in the wild, or I've never met anybody who's actually bought one. Now, this is one of the rare watches that's not in a Rolex Oyster case. As far as I know, every watch Rolex makes is in an Oyster case, apart from the Cellini, and the Prince is part of that family, so it is not as water resistant as the rest. But it's very Art Deco, it's very cool looking, and it's a Rolex that's very uncommon. So you can still have that Rolex name, but have something a little bit different, which is uncommon with Rolex, because personally I think they're very common, even though I'm wearing one, but that makes the Prince that much cooler. Moving along, I've another thing that I've mentioned in a previous video, and that is the Tag Heuer Smartphone. Now, during the smartphone craze, a couple years after the iPhone, there's companies like Vertu that make very expensive phones, luxury phones with luxury materials, and Tag Heuer decided to dip their toes into that pool. And boy, did that not go well. However, this isn't the worst smartphone ever made. Hint, hint, another one is coming up. But it pretty much flopped. Tag Heuer has their sunglass line, they have their watches, they tried to diversify in the smartphone world. That really didn't work. It was discontinued probably within a year of announcement. Up now is an accessory that actually hasn't been out on the market for too long. So it might be a little premature to call it a flop, but I know it's certainly not doing well. And that is the Montblanc Eastwrap. Now, what is the E-strap? The E-strap is a cloth strap which you can attach to any watch, preferably a Montblanc one if you were to ask them, and it has a screen on the bottom. It can sync to your iOS or Android device and give you updates such as what gate your flight is boarding on, or it can give you Fitbit updates, stuff like that. And it was Montblanc's venture into the smartwatch category. They didn't want to make a full-blown smartwatch. They wanted to give you the functionality with the ability to wear a Swiss watch. And I actually think that's pretty cool. But as far as I know, it's not selling very well at all. So I'm kind of curious to see how much longer it'll be available. Up next is another smartphone. And boy, this one is pretty special. And that is the Ulysses Nardin Chairman. A $50,000 smartphone. Now, the king of the smartphone luxury market is Vertu, and they're not doing pretty well either. However, this is more expensive than most of Vertu's lineup. It has an 8 megapixel camera, and the coolest thing, apart from, of course, being made in luxury materials such as gold, is at the back of the smartphone, you can see something that looks very similar to an ETA 2892 movement. Now, this rotor supposedly powers the battery a little bit so you don't have to constantly charge it. That's pretty cool, but what a waste of a movement. And the cherry on the cake is, Ulysses Nardin said you need to service the smartphone once a year, which includes software updates, polishing, and oiling of the movement at a very low price of $5,000. I'm willing to bet these sold probably less than triple digits. I doubt that more than 100 of these were sold. But you never know. There might be a Russian oligarch running around Chelsea and London with their Ulysses Nardin chairman. It's certainly a statement piece. Now we have a brand that has been trying to break into horology and has failed pretty much every time. And that is Ferrari partnered with anybody. Now, Ferrari previously partnered with Girard-Perregaux to make some chronographs, and those really didn't sell well, which is great because you guys should check out eBay for Girard-Perregaux Ferrari models. They can be had for very little, and they look pretty cool. And after that failed partnership, Ferrari partnered with Panerai. And those watches quickly were sold 50% off after a year because no one sold any of them. One of the biggest flops in horological history. However, it seems Ferrari has given up in the luxury watch world and is now having watches made by the Movado Group. Ay, Ferrari, you guys make beautiful cars, but don't ever try to make watches again. What a failure. Now we have one of the cooler ideas that I'm sad to say kind of flopped, and that is the Vacheron Constantin Queue d'Île. Now this is a strangely shaped watch. It's kind of cushion shaped, and originally the idea between this was it was a watch made to order. You could customize the watch on the Vacheron Constantin website, customize the materials. You could even use two types of materials, like titanium and rose gold together, and you can pick the dial and stuff like that. A customizable watch. Yeah. The lead times were massive, so nobody actually ever customized them. So then Vacheron Constantin decided to kind of just release pre-made ones to stores, but they never picked up any steam. This watch, however, is still being made, and now it's available in stainless steel as their entry-level model. Guys, I don't think that's going to do much better. But if you have a smaller budget and you want a VC, then check out the Queue d'Île. Now we have a ladies' watch, and a rare flop for a ladies' watch because it's made by the premier ladies' watchmaker, and that is the Cartier Ulysses. A watch only available in precious metals and meant to whimsically be shaped like a candy with a wrapper. This watch was released around 5 or 6 years ago. Within a year, Cartier put incentives on the watch to every AD, so every salesman would get like $1,000 for selling one because they were doing so badly. It was quickly retired by the brand, which is something that doesn't normally happen in such a short lifespan of only 3 or 4 years, especially for an iconic brand like Cartier. Man, they usually do pretty well, but Cartier to flop on a ladies' watch? I guess it was just too avant-garde for them. Now, we had a watch that was hyped hugely before its release, and that is the Hublot Oceanographique 4,000 meters, 48 millimeter watch. And wow, what a mouthful. This was really hyped about 4 or 5 years ago when it was going to be released. And it was a very chunky diver. It was one of the roughest watches out there. 4,000 meters water resistance. It was going to be Hublot's next big thing. I couldn't wait to get one in the boutique because I did used to work retail before I moved into brand management. And I couldn't wait to get one in the boutique at that time. And man, when we got one in, couldn't give the things away. Oh my God. I mean, heavily discounted. What did Hublot do later? They released a ceramic model. Easy to say, that didn't do well either. Hublot at least takes a lot of chances. I didn't think the watch was too bad, but at that thickness and at 48 millimeters, where are you supposed to wear it around? Your ankle? And last on my list is the Zenith Defy Extreme. And man, I think this is probably the biggest failure on this list. These were released in the mid-2000s by then Zenith CEO Thierry Nataf, and these were big, massive sports watches with bracelets, but they were really gaudy. I mean, the Zenith logo was plastered all over them, crazy colors on the dial, crazy materials. They were actually quite good watches, very tough, very good movements, but they didn't sell well at all. These things were ugly. Easy to say, Thierry Nataf no longer works at Zenith, thank God for that, and they've moved into a much more classic direction and are doing much, much better. Anyway, guys, what do you think of this list? Let me know if you think I missed anything. By the way, check out the description of this video for a link to my Instagram so you guys can see some cool watch content on the days when I'm not uploading. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you found it entertaining, I guess. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking around for another episode of Federico Talks Watches, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.